it is for,
Yep.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's meeting of the GTV committee. We're starting right now. The members present are myself, Brad Parker, chairman, secretary, whatever you want to call me, Barbara Duty, Scott Gross, who is a new member of the board, Mike Brazaska, who a member of the board, and Adam is also here, representing the GTV studio. First of all, I can call the meeting to order.
You forgot to
I've
say
already taken
Mia was here.
attendance. And I'd like to consider the previous minutes that we had.
you're a permanent,
You should all have received a copy of those.
yes.
And is there any changes, adjustments, or? that you'd like to
I don't
make?
have the paper in front of me, and I read it a while ago, and as far as I'm concerned, we didn't have a meeting, did we? The last time we met?
It was questionable whether it was a meeting or non-meeting,
Right.
but we didn't vote on any, we didn't vote to
Right,
spend any
right.
money or
So,
anything.
we'll have to say it was perfect.
You know, there were no major impact items,
Right,
except it was
right, yeah.
more, received the coordinator's report and discussed some items that are on there.
Mm.
Now, I'll entertain a motion to accept them as presented.
I think so. I'll second it, or first it, or whatever you need to do.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. Next, we need to get into,
You gonna vote to accept it?
yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to keep you honest.
That's all right, thank you, I appreciate that. That's why we have you on the board, Scott.
Yeah.
He's a plant. That's a plant.
I'm taking the notes for you, by the way.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, because I figured.
You're going to be
It's hard
secretary?
enough to facilitate a meeting. Well, I'll just
You're going to
take
be
it.
secretary? No, I mean, I'm asking, because
Why,
I'll
you want-
say,
do you
number
wanna
one.
do it? You want arm
No,
wrestle
I'm
for it?
saying,
Let's come back to that
Okay.
first, okay? That's something that I have listed on there.
I'll nominate you, is what I'm saying.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, okay.
Next, I'd like to go into the coordinators report.
All right. I'll
Adam,
just-
you're on board.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Summer's gone, school's in full swing, so with it, we finished up some upgrades and started in on our sports schedule. Game broadcasts have been going fantastic. The new JVC camera allows us to input the score via an iPad for most sports. So far, our football crew has utilized it to allow us to not have to put too much effort into editing the games, especially graphics. So single camera games, which is a majority of what we do, look and feel more professional, and as we go along, I feel some of our multicam games will also benefit from this. Along with football, which has seen a long-time voice of the Grizzlies, Alan Potvin, be joined by our new board member, Scott Gross, longtime softball volunteer as well. We have some new teams starting to get coverage. Hugh DeBrule, Mike Santoro, and Joe Borges have picked up 4 games for the boys varsity soccer to film this season. The first effort was last night. I think it was great. They're doing play-by-play along with camera and scoreboard operation with that same camera. Their hope is to get this experience to allow them to do much more next season. I always believe in starting small and support this notion as it brings in new people. We've also had some student interest in volleyball and basketball broadcasts, and 2 of our soccer crew have expressed interest in baseball broadcasting, which would be a first since I started at GTV. It's kind of a vacuum for coverage so far. Sports broadcasting, I believe, allows us to gain access to a large cross-section of our community. Public awareness of GTV is raised every time we cover a game. People have started remembering we are here, which was a struggle when I first started. Rather than an afterthought, I think people are starting to seek us out. It's going to cause a bit of a push in workload, but it's something I've been hoping for since I started. This summer, we also upgraded our school board setup. The school allowed us to install permanent cameras in the info center. This will give staff an efficient way to set up our equipment. The efficiency also gives us a cleaner look in the room, something that is tough to accomplish with a spot setup and not a permanent one like this one. We're still planning on upgrading the cameras in this room and adding a few cameras across the hall in room 107 as we head through budget season, but those projects have been delayed because of ongoing structural work here at Town Hall. Our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter accounts have all been very active, and if you haven't already, please like the Town of Goffstown Facebook page. Neil and I are both admins on that, and we utilize it quite a bit. Last night, we posted election results in the contested elections, and before they were officially available is an unofficial capacity, of course, so, so go ahead and like the town of Goffstown, if you could. So
Well,
that's
I
it.
guess we all do like the town of Goffstown since we all live here, and we're all volunteers on several boards and everything. First of all, I guess we should entertain a motion to accept the coordinator's report.
What do you say? Yes, do it, and then someone else does it? I forget. It's been 3 months.
Okay, well, basically it all is just somebody says yes to a.
Okay, yes, let's accept it.
Okay. And the other one, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have to follow the official protocol here.
That's 4-0.
That, yes.
And Brad, would you do me a favor, for the sake of the minutes, what was for accepting the minutes, was that a 3-0? I didn't vote, so.
That would be a 3-0 because
And one abstention.
you were
Okay.
not there. I stopped by the studio the other night after the election set up, and Adam showed me the new camera, and I know you've worked with it, Scott. It's pretty cool with all the updates and everything that they can do with the use of the iPad, which is beyond my technical knowledge, but
I contacted JVC last week. There's a certain guy who's worked on this camera, and he actually isn't in the video camera department. His son was in high school, and he wanted an easy way to do this, and he worked for JVC. So he started developing this and trying to get them to do it. Long story short, I sought him out when I went to NAB in, was it April? And I got a rather lengthy demo of the camera. And then after we bought it and we've used it a couple times, I actually contacted him. I found his contact info. And I asked if they're interested in trying to find somebody that would be doing beta releases for the software updates on the camera. So we might end up being involved in that because we kind of fit a nice niche where it's not mission critical that we have all the games. If something were to have a problem, then we could, figure it out. But as a part of that, he also said, we just updated this camera like literally this morning, so we got the update, and it added sports to it, so it was fantastic. The baseball, softball one is great. It shows like runners on base and everything. It's really neat.
so we did the Oyster River game last night.
Yep.
Okay. I haven't taken a look at it myself, but I'm sure it came out quite well. And I like the fact that getting these other people involved, as you said, it brings it out more to the community to make them aware of what GTV has to offer.
Right.
I know Scott and I worked, and Bill Ruel worked the softball games, and that Scott's doing football. Scott's everywhere, thank you. And I liked it. I really do, that other people are like, oh, let me help you out. Let's help out.
Yeah,
Everybody else stepping up. I appreciate that.
it's great.
Okay. Financial report, although we don't have to approve this in any way because we're operating a different type of budget.
So, as you know, GTV is a revolving fund, and we've been working off a budget each year, and we base our budget on an estimate of revenue from Comcast that's assigned to GTV. This year, we've expended our budget. We're pretty much, other than, employee costs, personnel costs, we've spent the limit. However, the last few years, we've been under budget by several thousand. So if we needed to spend something this year, we could. There is money in the revolving fund. But as far as budgeting goes, we've spent this year's budget.
We've spent this year's budget in September?
Yeah, but I'm talking about.
No, I'm just putting
Equipment
the
line.
numbers in my head, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
We've spent our equipment lines, and we've overspent a couple lines, so even though we haven't spent postage, or some of these
Right,
supply lines, we've spent
Yeah.
what we budgeted. Because we're doing all these sports broadcasts, the editing is much harder than doing a half-an-hour TV show in the studio, I would guess. So Adam has upgraded his editing station. So he's got a new computer, and we bought a new monitor. You got a new sound mixer. We got the new sports camera. You got the card reader to hook into it. So it's making Adam's life easier with all this new video that's coming into the studio, giving him time to speed along the production.
Well, like, for instance, I was, the game on Friday for football, the score was 37-33. Normally what would happen in that process last year when we do those games, I had to put in the graphics for each score. So a touchdown and an extra point is 2 graphics. 37-33, I would have been editing that all day. Instead, I can import the footage. Because the camera's newer, the files are massive. So you have to have a computer that can handle it. So like everything had to just kind of get nudged up just a little bit, just in order to be able to export the files. But the pipeline is much, much quicker. So 2.5-hour game, we can spit out the file in about 2 hours, a little under or so. So that's phenomenal. To do it in like real
That's
time, more or less, is
fantastic,
good,
yeah.
yeah.
Where'd you buy, what'd you buy?
We have a Mac Pro,
Oh, you Mac?
the desktop, yep. And then there's a RAID storage and card readers and stuff like that, so,
Good.
yep,
We got him a second monitor.
yep.
It's a dual screen. How are you using the Blackmagic Video Assist, that 7-inch thing? Is that?
So that'll go on top of the camera. It's also a recorder. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. So we needed an external monitor on top of the camera. So if you're doing the football games, you basically have to have somebody that's doing the iPad, someone that's doing the camera, because there's so much involved in the scoreboard of a football game. You have to look over their shoulder of whoever's running the camera and look at this tiny little screen. So we need to put a monitor up there. And a monitor, if you look into them, they get really expensive for what they are, for a camera-mounted monitor. This one's a video recorder. It also has an extra headphone output, which is big because we actually need one for the camera operator. Has an in and output for HDMI and SDI, which are really big. So it's kind of like I said, like the Swiss Army knife of being able to use all these different pieces in that. Plus, that can be utilized. For instance, when we're doing like softball games, we have this little mini mixer. Well, it doesn't have a recorder with it. Well, if you put this on here, you have a monitor and a recorder now. So it's kind of
And you'll
like,
be able to see it better.
yes, instead of this tiny little screen on there, which is split in 4 for that
Oh,
piece. So
on
this
top
one
of
would
it.
be 7 inches,
Yeah.
and it'll be so
I
much
could just say,
better.
just from, from doing some of these games, you have that, it allows you to switch, but you can actually really see what's going on. So even
Yeah.
though you have potentially, I think we had on one game, we had 3 cameras that were operated, one center field, one coming down from the press box, and then we had another one over home plate.
Mm-hmm.
And as plays evolve, the person
And
who's
it
up there
used to
can
be in a
really
little
see what's
box like
going
this.
on, and they're switching to the different camera angles that they can see,
Yeah.
which is really, it's kind of professional. I mean, it's kind of cool.
It was really cool for softball because, like, to do baseball and softball justice, you need like a lot of cameras because there's so many little things happening. So what worries me about that is when you need a lot of cameras, generally you need a lot of camera operators, which it's
Right.
hard to get volunteers to come out and do those things. But when we did the softball games, we were using stationary cameras. We were using GoPros mounted on the backstop. And it was great. You really didn't need like all these people out there doing it. It was just kind of the skeleton crew doing the games, and it really worked nice. But I can't wait to use this camera for softball because it'll make it look even better too, because like balls and strikes and outs and runners on base, good stuff.
I think we're all in again on softball, right, Scott?
Oh, yeah.
Question, you said since we've expended the budget, do we anticipate any major expenditures between now and the next Comcast?
Maybe. I'm not done with my financial.
Oh, I'm
report.
sorry.
This year, we budgeted $128,107 for GTV, based on a conservative estimate of Comcast revenue. But it looks like we might receive as much as $144,000 in Comcast revenue. So that's about $16,000 under, what we could have budgeted. We still want to be conservative because you don't lose the money, it rolls over and it stays in GTV. But so next year's budget, I based on $140,000 instead of $128,000.
Okay.
So we have that. We also received a $500 donation from State Farm
Yes, I saw that in the
Yeah.
selectmen's minutes.
to be used, so.
Certainly want to thank State Farm and Scott.
Right. What were you just asking me before?
Major
Any
expenses.
major expenses?
Oh, so we're working on auditing all the equipment in GTV, figuring out the replacement cost, the age, when it's gonna need to be replaced. So that way, we can have a really good idea of spreading out the cost, how much should we replace per year. The most expensive item he's got, I believe, is the broadcast server that's like 30,000 or
Yeah.
something for that. You know, and then he's got his switches. So we've got to figure out the total amount of replacement cost of equipment and when it needs to be replaced, how old it is, what the schedule is, so we can really work out how to spend that remaining money we have.
So you're working with Adam on this, right? So we're trying to be a little proactive and develop a quasi-budget, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think in the
Future.
3 years that I've been here, it's almost been like a triage of trying to figure out what pieces of equipment are dying. And we've done a pretty good job of being able to get to those pieces and get them out and replace them and get through the line. So we're now at a good place where we can start looking towards like, well, where are we going to be 5 years from now with this?
What Adam inherited was really
I'm familiar with that.
use
I
the
am
You
very
don't have to
familiar.
explain that, because,
Barbara probably would, Mike
Yeah.
probably would be
Yeah.
too, so.
So we
Right.
we've upgraded cameras,
The server and
servers, lighting,
so they're actually
studio.
doing what they're supposed to do instead of
Correct.
what you had.
Right.
When you upgrade, where does the old stuff go? The graveyard, dump?
It
in a little
depends.
corner of our office right now.
It's usually, it usually probably exhausts itself with a great big sigh of relief and passes out.
Well, there's been a few of those, yeah, but this is all.
There was computer equipment that went to the dump. That was
It had to.
garbage.
Is there anything we can use for exchange or?
That has salvage
Probably
value.
salvage, yeah, but probably with, again, I'm not the guru as far as technology is concerned, but usually with so fast the upgrades, the other's just obsolete.
Right.
Especially the computers with hard drives. What do you do with the hard drives?
We wipe the hard drives.
Is that, just wipe them?
Yeah.
Bleach them.
Or you just take a hammer to them, once and
Um,
for all?
Even a hammer might not.
Because
Have
some-
you have you
Oh, it
tried to
works on
damage a hard
Blackberries.
drive with a hammer?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, without taking it apart and actually hitting the
Yeah.
drives. Yeah. So it's easier to do a military
One big
grade
nail,
wipe,
right through the heart,
and then
hammer. You know, just that drives like that in the wrong hands of people, they can recover information.
Well,
might find old
GTV. It's
shows.
going to be it's
I'm just asking.
social security
I'm
numbers.
just asking.
It's true.
They would have to be an awful weird person to be
Yeah.
playing with it. Yeah,
So
sorry.
basically, the inventory is gonna act like a little mini, like CIP, where GTV will be able to say, okay, we've got X amount of cameras and computers, et cetera, and then we expect that the lifespan of this particular piece of equipment might be 5 years or 6 years, so we know that we can kind of budget and.
That's a good way to
do
look
all
at it,
that.
yeah.
Okay. So, and then the same thing, is there, I'm trying to remember, is there like a disposal policy that the selectmen have, or I'm trying
Yes.
to remember?
Yep.
Okay.
We look to see if any departments
Need it.
need
right,
it.
Right.
And if they don't, the finance director authorizes the disposal.
Okay.
We can try to trade it in. What we often do is if it has residual value and it can be used somewhere else, like we could take cameras from the studio and bring them to town hall, and cameras from town hall and move them to the second meeting room. You know, we can rotate equipment
Right.
as
But some of the things that are tucked away are like pretty ancient. So
Ancient.
that'll more than likely just be probably disposed of, I'm assuming, right?
And there is a GTV producer who likes a lot of that really old stuff, and we might say this has zero value, and if you want it, take it.
Yeah.
But we would evaluate it first,
Right,
and make sure
okay.
it's really zero value.
Yep.
Or cost us money, like, if you're getting rid of computer monitors, the old CRTs, it used to cost $10 per
Right.
CRT to get rid of
Right,
it.
Yeah, the transfer
You
station.
don't want to pay to get rid of it if somebody will take it.
No, not at all. All right, well, thank you. Do you have any more on your?
No.
No more? All right. Obviously, Gary's not here, so we don't have any school information update unless you have anything from the school.
Not from the school, but actually,
Say you?
no, from the
Kinda
town
related.
side, non-financial. Monday night, the Board of Selectmen approved the RFP for dark fiber to make network connections between the municipal buildings, which includes GTV, which, when we get that installed, should enable Adam to be able to go live from any of our municipal buildings.
Including school.
Well, he already can do it from
We
the school.
we can already do it through the school, because they have a similar project that they did this summer. We haven't tested that yet, but my hope is actually to have something in place around Election Day, so we can do some student involvement with Bartlett and the high school, where we have like live updates from what's going on, because
From both
I
sides.
expect the Election Day will be pretty big.
Election day is anticipated to be very big. Hopefully, maybe we can get some students involved to helping with
Yes.
with the election. I know,
Right.
I know what it's like to set it up, take it down, and run the election, but, I mean, we had about a 20% turnout yesterday. You know, it's probably be closer to 60% on, maybe more, on
So
November.
when the dark fiber thing goes through, we would literally, just about any building in town that's school or town related, we could go live from. So from here, from out front, we could probably do like a parade, we could actually have it live on the channel.
So like
Or-
Memorial Day parade or
Yeah,
anything?
What
library.
is the timeline on that?
Probably take at least 3 months to install, and then test and so forth.
How's dark fiber defined?
It's not lit.
You know how you have a network within your building connected with Ethernet cable?
Yep.
Basically, you have a network connected between your buildings with fiber optic cable instead of Ethernet cable within the building. So we would have a literal physical connection from building to building using fiber optic cable. Another thing that potentially would affect GTV is right now, we transmit our broadcast from Town Hall to GTV over coaxial cable. And our connection to the fiber will be much faster than that coax, so we might get a much better product back at the studio
Yep.
on these live broadcasts.
We will, because it's analog right now, and if, I look at it and I can see there's like static.
Snow.
You have to like tune that in. We don't have the instruments to tune it in, and getting Comcast out here to do it is like impossible. It looks good. It looks fine, but it's such a clean signal when you go over that fiber optic. It's gonna be great.
All right, well, thank you very much. Dark fiber, all I'm thinking is dark side of the force.
This is
Deep web,
kind of with
dark
that,
web.
but not quite. With the equipment that you're putting in, and the equipment that's gonna be from, electronic, I've been just thinking about weather, because it's been weird everywhere. And I was just wondering, what type of weather would interfere with this new stuff?
It'd take a pretty catastrophic event, because one of the novel things about that whole project and the layout of the town is we're more or less, all the buildings are in a large loop,
Right,
with the exception of a few here and there, like station, what is it, the fire station up there and
17.
17. So if you have this big loop and everything's going around in a circle, it's not just going in one direction, it's going all directions, really.
Right.
If a part of that goes out, it still can go around.
it can still,
Can still, so maybe you can't get from, this building to this building directly, but you can get from this building all the way through to this,
Okay, so when you mean all buildings, so that also includes police and fire?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't
Yep.
even think of that myself.
There's a lot of things that there's a lot of video things for GTV that could potentially happen that we haven't even really thought of yet. But, we're just gonna be live from any
It's
building,
in-
that's pretty awesome,
It's like in the infant stages, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of opportunity to grow. I like that.
So this is on the power, I mean, it's on the poles?
Yes.
Okay. And from what you just said, that would lead me to believe that you would then have like really strong video conferencing capabilities between all of your buildings then, right? Or no?
Yes.
Probably already have that already, but I think if you're talking about that speed in which you're talking
You
about,
could,
then.
yeah.
We don't have that already.
Oh, I thought we did.
Well, you
You
could
could
do
use
it.
Skype or something
Right,
like that, right?
and,
but-
and video conferencing can take up to 6 megabytes
Right.
per call or per video. And so say you had the new phones that have the video conferencing
Right.
built right on the phone. If you're using 6 megabytes per call and you had 3 people on a call, that would wipe out our entire current
Okay.
network connection.
So this would
With what
allow
we
you
have
to do
now.
that. So this is conceivable then, that you could do a video call rather than having people.
Right, we're going from 20 megabytes
Yeah.
to 10 gigabits. That's about a 500% increase.
Okay.
It's awesome, yeah.
Now, if you are going from here outside, then you're using the internet.
Gotcha.
But from here to police, you're using this gigabit network,
Alright.
10 gigabit.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, we don't have an entire loop, but we do have some redundancy.
Yeah.
built in. We-
It'll end up being a savings for you eventually with the replacement and stuff, I'm sure, you know, it's,
Right, I mean, this has nothing to do with GTV, but because you just mentioned it, we can eliminate the servers at the Public Works office, we can eliminate the servers at the fire station, because they're on our network, it'll be as if they're in the same building as us. So we'll still
We've
have
talked about
servers
this
that,
for a while. I probably remember.
Right.
Not to be nosy, but to be nosy, and to throw another little foot. You know these people that are doing hacking all over the place?
yes,
How hackable is that kind of new process where,
no
be-
different than, you can be hacked no matter. If
right?
somebody wants to hack you, they can hack you. This is not about security.
it's like an internal network though, so.
No, it is, yeah.
And actually, from a
Not that anybody
security
would- I'm
perspective,
not-
we can put video cameras places and monitor them with the police because we'll have the bandwidth
Right.
to carry the video over IP. Town Hall has a CIP proposal for security system in here. I forget all the locations of cameras and
That's a
things
good idea
that was
too. Yeah, you're right.
recommended.
Yeah.
That video can be monitored in the dispatch center at the police station.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That we could never do that without this product.
Right, this new,
and we could have a situation where if there's some sort of local emergency, you know, all the emergency response people, all their buildings could go. So if
Would
they want
know
to get
instant-
word
yeah,
out to the
would
town, they
know
can-
immediately,
Yep,
yeah. It isn't like the fire would have to notify the police, or the police have
they
to
already have
notify the
Nixle and
town.
stuff, but it's just one more
It'll be so
step.
instant that, and then they can tell the whole town, except me who's on dial-up.
No, you're not really.
Well, you were asking about the weather and how that would affect this. If a pole got taken out by, strong winds, tornado-type winds,
Right,
that's going to take down the power lines that are on the power pole.
right.
Pretty catastrophic.
But
then,
he
I'd say.
said that it can,
some
say they
redundancy.
take down this power pole, these others can sort of juggle around and work around it, even though this is down.
Right. Some of us would still be up, and it depends where it
Right,
happens.
right.
Well, thank you. Anything else anybody has? What I'd like to discuss under action items is, I think I've sent you an email for Mike, Scott, Barbara, and Jason need to come to town hall sometime to, unless you've already done it.
I'm done.
You're done, thank you. To have Kathy swear you in, because the Board of Selectmen have approved your appointments. Hopefully get it done in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, electronic people don't want to know this, but I do have dial-up on my, on my computer. But another thing is I had a cell phone that used to almost run everything on the computer, even though the computer was down. And I could get emails and I could get everything. Well, that thing is 8 years old, and it decided to die instead of whimper. And so I have another phone, only none of my systems are on it. So it's going to be a little bit before I get everything back up. But I can go to the town hall and sign that paper
All it is
anytime.
is she has to swear you
I
in.
got your message that, you know.
Okay, I
yeah.
thought you were saying you didn't get the message.
No, I get it, but I can't do anything about it.
Well, this is just requires an action on your
Right,
part.
right.
And, if you couldn't get into town hall, she would be willing to bring it to her house if you could stop by, because obviously she's very, very busy with the elections, and going to be even busier with the upcoming election. Plus doing the town
Right,
hall.
I
right.
believe the swearing in is very quick.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that,
It's
yeah,
just a matter of the official, to make everything official.
right.
Okay, and the next item, I don't know if it should come under new business or action items, but I'd like to ask Scott to step up to be secretary.
Sure.
Okay? I'll nominate Scott. Do I get a
Okay,
second?
should I second it for you?
Sure.
Sure.
All in favor?
I'll vote for myself, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
Unanimous, affordable.
I appreciate it.
That's kind of
I
good
guess
that you
following
vote
up
for
on
yourself.
that, my technical title is interim
Right.
chairman. Should I be now officially the chairman?
You want to be? Go right ahead. Motion that.
You motion
I
that?
motion it.
Okay.
I was gonna say I second it, and I realized, wait a minute, that's not the right one. I motion it.
Second?
Yeah.
Mike? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's just a matter of paperwork
Right.
stuff.
Just so it's there so they can say,
Oh, I know.
did you? Yeah.
Because it was tough doing both, staying as busy as I am. Is there any other new business to come before the board? Oh, sorry, the committee.
I have a question, which I thought might be the question you were going to ask, Scott. With, With-
I'm on the hot.
yeah, well, with all your long history on boards in Goffstown, especially being a selectman for years, I'm curious what you think of this. We formed this committee when we had a volunteer coordinator and kept the committee when we had a part-time coordinator. Now we have a full-time coordinator, and while serving on this committee isn't onerous at all, we do, we meet a couple times, it's not controversial. We've had a really hard time keeping members and getting quorums. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the value of keeping the committee now that we have a full-time coordinator.
Wow.
That's putting you on.
That's a
spot.
question
Yeah.
that's been up a lot.
I mean, personally,
punt,
I
but-
no, I don't mind. Listen, I don't mind responding to the question. I mean, and I think I've shared this for like the last couple of years. Is that I just felt that it really wasn't necessary because the way it has evolved. I think when it first started, it was necessary, but I'm not so sure that it is needed. I mean, Adam has to report to you. You have to report to Sue, and then the Board of Selectmen. There's a chain of command there. Is there benefit of having an advisory group of people? Perhaps, but in terms of the day-to-day, more or less, you're not. This committee is not day-to-day supervising. It is an advisory board. And it's just a matter of. I don't know. I haven't been on this committee, but what you guys can answer this question. What has been done that would make it necessary to have a cable committee?
Well, I think what I get out of it, there's a lot of networking benefits. There's a lot of us here that are come from various parts in society. I'm technical in nature. I can ask questions, but the most important, I think, is that we can all network on behalf of GTV, getting people to do TV shows, to do filming at games. Voice of the Grizzlies, Al Potvin, was my responsibility. I brought him in. What's that?
That's you.
Yeah, that's me. And,
That's you.
I was...
You developed that star.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And that's just one. I wrote a piece on internships that I want to put forth. Actually, it's already written, presented to people at St. A's to get kids working with GTV in the marketing and the communications group, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of networking benefits going forward. People we can do, all know somebody that wants to be a show. I had no problem asking people, hey, you want to do your own TV show? And people look at you like, I don't want to do it. And then you explain how it can evolve and
Yeah.
what you can do to really develop programs. I mean, are you still looking for TV shows?
Of course we are.
So all of us here are advocates for TV shows for GTV. We have no problem. I have no problem asking people to, hey, come on down.
I've got a question for you, though. You can do that as a producer and volunteer at GTV. Does being on the committee carry extra weight?
I think it does. I think it does extra weight. I think it does.
I'm not advocating getting rid of the committee by any means. It's no trouble for me to come here once a month or 2 months,
Once every 3 months.
Yeah, it's not.
To sort of back up what you are saying, when you say that you're on the committee, instead of just saying, do some producing and stuff like that. Producing means you're just in the office, and, I shouldn't say just, you're just at the station, or you're bringing people in. But if you say you're on the committee, that means you have the ear of,
That's right. And having the ear of the committee is one part. Second part is that if there's nobody to advocate, you can say, yeah, Joey, why don't you go down to the DTV and talk to Adam and talk about your show. You really think they're gonna go? On the other hand, if he said, Joe, I'm gonna meet you down there, I set up a meeting with him multiple times, and Dave, let's sit down and talk about it. What can you do? You have you have a better chance of that person coming with you and sitting down and finding out exactly what you're all about and going forward. I just think we're just arms of GTV advocating on behalf of GTV to get better programming. I have another project that just entered my head this past week that I'll talk to you about offline,
A little bit of my input on this is that, first of all, for all you people out there in the public that would like to become involved, please contact Town Hall. We could use some more members. And my opinion is that having a committee makes the citizens feel more comfortable that there's oversight to a certain department within the town. Even though it's hard for us to get volunteers, I know people are, for some reason, if they've got a committee for the fire, whatever, people are much more comfortable with that.
Related to that point, my feeling from an administrative standpoint has always been that the Board of Selectmen like to hear a committee recommendation when you've got a committee made up of members of the community. Do you think that carries any
Yeah, no,
more
I
weight
think
it's
than
almost
just
like we're a little
coordinator?
buffer.
I do. I
Yeah.
do think that is the case, but the flip side of me has said that there are many things that have maybe outgrown their usefulness. Like a lot of commissions or committees were started because you had part-timers, or even volunteers, not even paid staff, and then they were advisory to Board of Selectmen. But when you have full-time people, ultimately, the success of GTV rests with you and you, really. And yes, I do believe that we can be, advocates, and I'm not so sure, where it lands. I mean, certainly it doesn't appear to me that this group would necessarily need to meet on a monthly or even probably every other. I mean, you probably can go quarterly for what is, truly needed. But I think maybe the best thing to do is to sit down, like, what is the mission or the job of the committee, and really kind of go through that and say, are we doing those things? And if Adam is really doing it, then I think you're responding to your own question.
There's a good project that we could all embark on that I think needs attention. And kind of goes with what you were saying. We have our policies and procedures, and it's a patchwork quilt. And it was patched up a couple of years ago. We had one little issue, and again, the selectmen wanted to see a vote from this committee to see what their recommendation was. We could go line by line over that whole thing. I mean, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it really needs to be done.
But if that's what the charge of the committee is when it was established, is to establish, review, and amend procedures over time, then that's what the committee, should be doing. Again, maybe I should have done my homework before I came to this meeting, but, whatever the charge is, that's what we should be reviewing. And if it's something that you're kind of doing, if you're doing 75% of them, then we just have to soul search and say, okay, then what are we responsible for?
Maybe it's more on me to be able to delegate some things that I don't really necessarily have to be attacking at that moment back to the board. I don't know if
And
that's,
you can do that to volunteers as well.
we do that a lot,
Yeah.
obviously.
Getting to what these two guys just said, though, that, Brad, you had said that you felt that this was the oversight for the townspeople to have confidence that, there are citizens that are overseeing it.
Yes.
If that's the case, then this committee and the outreach piece if that's what this committee kind of focuses on, the policies, you know, and I know that there have been controversies in the past about what can a producer do, who owns the content, who does it. Those are all great things, and if that's where this group kind of lands and then makes those recommendations for the approval of that policy at the Board of Selectmen, then I think that's a good thing. And then that could free Adam up to really deal with the more technical things of what the job is, and then the lay people, shall we say, we're the ones working more or less on the policies and the procedures of things, so that when controversial things might come up, it kind of takes you out of it. It's just like, we have a policy. Whether I agree with the policy as the director or not, this is what has been established, recommended by the committee and approved by the Board of Selectmen. So your next step would be talking to the committee and/or the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
It just makes your life a lot easier, because whenever, I think that's kind of what the role of all these boards is that you're creating policies or you're recommending regulations or town ordinances to kind of, that allow the people like police and fire and DPW and planning to kind of do their jobs, that it gives the parameters to do the job.
And
That will help him.
the last example I remember of that is a member of the public came in and said, I want to know if I can have copies of, videos that appear on the channel. And we agreed as a committee that we're posting it on YouTube and Vimeo. Yeah, you can have a copy of it. You can't claim it as your own, or I think there was some
Right.
restrictions as far as, this was produced by somebody else, but you're welcome to download it instead of coming to GTV and asking
Right.
to buy a DVD.
Well,
and
I mean, even something to the effect of, I was kind of half joking with Adam, but maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm being a little serious. That maybe there was a show that was more for not adults in terms of its content or topics, and what is the policy? Do those things get aired after a certain time?
I've found the policy to be conflicting.
Right.
In some places.
Yeah.
Like just enough so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what part do I uphold?
Right.
So that's the gray areas, I think, that really need to be, a knife needs to be
Is
taken.
this
to
something we should get together sometime in the next few months offline and take a look at and come up with the revised policies and procedures?
Well, you couldn't have a quorum unless you had a subcommittee or something look at it. I think with a full-time coordinator, Adam should really go through it line by line
Yeah.
and then present a draft to the committee, to go over.
All right, well, you kind of answered my question, I'm just.
Sorry, Adam.
No,
Once
something
all
needs
this
to be
is
done.
done, do we need to approach the Board of Selectmen about the viability of the committee?
Not unless we determine that it's really not needed. If we were going to eliminate it, I think we would go to the selectmen and say.
I just think that going through, I think the first step would be for us at the next meeting to kind of go through what the original charge of the committee was. And I think, if I'm not
The
mistaken.
original, it
Yes.
was to create a TV show, and they did all the electronics, they did all the input of making the shows, they did everything that you would do so that the show, the GTV station ran. That's what the original.
Right, I mean,
they were all- they were-
whatever exists right now, which is the charge of the committee, just review it, before there
It's
was
completely
involvement in
different.
negotiating with the provider, right?
Right.
Wasn't that part of it at one point? Now you do that,
Right.
so.
Well, they set up a subcommittee too. More than likely, when we go to
It'll be an
renegotiate,
ad hoc-
Right.
it'll be an ad hoc committee.
Cable franchise agreement.
Yeah.
committee.
I mean, I don't think I even have a copy of the original, like you said,
It's
the
online.
charge.
It's online. The bylaws are online.
Bylaws are run by,
Yep.
under GTV?
Online where?
On the town website,
Town
on the
website.
The
GTV.
town website?
Yep.
Okay,
I think
so
it's
one
probably
more
new
reason why I have to
You
get
can go to the
my computer
library,
out.
they have.
I
complete-
can go to the library?
Yeah, if you have it, if you can go to
Oh,
the
yeah,
library
yeah,
and
yeah,
even get your emails,
I
you can
forgot
get it.
that,
Yeah,
I
you can go
forgot
there.
that. I can use
I'm
their
just making a plug
computers.
for the library.
Yeah.
My wife will have.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell her that you told me to go over and bother her.
So right now, I'm very happy that we've got a quorum. Jason sent me an email saying that he couldn't be here.
Right.
But we would have now 5 members. We're authorized 7. So we'd be getting there, and I can see some dynamics coming out of this committee that we didn't have for the last couple of months. And especially with you taking over, because I had so much on my plate, I know you have a lot on your plate, and take a look at the bylaws and anything else that you might have, and revise them if we have to.
Yep.
And if we have to get the selectmen involved, fine. If not, move on, because I still think there should, I'm sorry, I'll go back to my original. People, the public is comfortable when they see that there's like an oversight committee for whatever there is.
Right.
Well, we're dealing with something that's so delicate as First Amendment issues, so obviously there should be input from those affected by it.
Well, even little things like, let's just say whether it be Adam or any producer, somebody
Yeah.
who wants to, and they want to go to any meeting, and someone says to that person, I don't want you taping this meeting, you don't have my permission, and the response will be, it's a public meeting, and I'm allowed, to
Any
tape
one
it.
of them are allowed to
I'm
go
allowed
to
to
any
record
one
it,
of the
right.
meetings.
You as a
Right.
public citizen can
Right.
do it. Just because you're using GTV equipment doesn't matter.
Right.
But those are the types of things that, I don't know if it's, that.
And we're not state-run TV, it's not like
Correct.
that, yeah.
Right.
But we're a level of transparency, and that's
Right.
how it should be. Yeah.
I would love to see some people sit in here to give us some input.
So that was
In
your, it was interesting, doing like this sports, it's kind of an interesting dynamic, because I remember growing, GTV growing, and there's all different types of shows. I remember Peter Georgantis did, he did a show where he went to different department heads and did different things. There's a cooking show with Charles. There's a whole lot of different things. I'm seeing it from just the sports side. And the one thing that I will say from the sports side of it is that the level of engagement with the community is like exponential on the sports side. Not to say that the Nielsen ratings aren't good for certain school board meetings, planning board meetings. I'm sure that they get a certain level, but the number of people that are like, I can see like the views on some of these videos is like in the thousands.
Yeah, the highlight video from Friday's game, which I posted on Saturday morning, it's closing in on 6,000 views on Facebook. And the reach
For
is
the
like
soccer
50
match?
no, this is for football, for
football,
Pinkerton. We call it the drive,
Okay.
where it's like the last drive, where they went down they went 93 yards in a minute.
Yeah.
I looked at that.
Incredible.
I was-
You saw it.
Yeah.
6,000 people have viewed it.
Wow.
And its reach was like 15,000. I mean, that's huge, And I had purposefully been kind of empty for a couple of days on Facebook, so our reach was nothing for the better part of a week. And then all of a sudden that hit, and it skyrocketed.
Yeah, so
Phenomenal.
I've been thinking a little bit about that, and like, how do we leverage that to then, how do we use maybe the sports as the way to reel in someone who wants to do other programming? And I think the fact that we're getting likes,
It's a
I
missing
think that's
link.
already
and-
happening.
yeah,
It's starting to, but I think you're onto something. There's a missing link there.
Correct.
From just, sports is one thing. Studio shows are a completely different animal. And a couple of times we've tried to like kind of cross that bridge and get some sports shows in the
Right.
studio. And some students have done them, and they've done a great job with them, but inevitably they'll either graduate or kind of lose interest and go do something else. But yeah, you're right. There's a missing link in there somewhere. I don't know, maybe it's putting a plug out during the game or something.
yeah, and I just think that from a marketing perspective, sports is an avenue to do that GTV, type marketing, I think, and
Oh, it is, because there are so many sports venues at the high school now, and so many kids involved in sports, and if the kids are involved, parents are involved, and then the extended family.
And if anybody's watching this right now and they're thinking about, GTV, because I've heard rumblings of this at the high school a couple times, like, oh, well, GTV, well, the football team has GTV and stuff. We're not targeting anybody. We're just trying to get volunteers to do any sport
Right.
or any event for that matter.
yeah.
It's not saying that we wouldn't do, Goffstown Arts. It's just that we
Well,
don't
so,
have
Adam, I was
that
gonna
in
ask
there
you
right
that.
now.
How have the views been when you do theater productions?
We've done a few of them. We'll do. It's hard because if they're going to do if they're going to do Shrek, at the high school. We can't do anything with it.
Is it because it's?
Their
because it's
contract
copyrighted?
specifically
Right.
denies them
Yeah.
from being able to
Right.
do that. So that's okay. That's completely fine. I've had numerous discussions with them about that. But their spring.
Talent show, if they high
Yeah,
school
talent show, spring
show,
dance,
right,
they have
right.
a spring dance gala that they do. That's all choreographed by the teacher there. So she's always been very big on that. So we'll have those, and those get a lot of traction too. The middle school performances, because they don't charge admission to those are not under copyright protection, where the high school, they'll charge admission. Technically, somebody could get, very angry about that, so we just kind of leave those alone. But the middle school concerts, those get a lot of traction because, on YouTube views, people will see them. I actually had somebody contact me, the Spring Dance Gala from last year. They sent me a message on Facebook asking where can I find that, just this past week. So, we would absolutely do much, much more with all sorts of different departments and different
Yeah,
facets, but.
somehow we need to try to engage. I think the schools is one, and I know Brian Balke, the superintendent, he did a couple of studio shows, just
Yeah.
talking about the budget or something of that. But if it could be something that's more like ongoing, like every month there is a quick 10, 15 minute, and whether it's done at someone's office or, on location, I think that makes it, I think the studio is easier for you, but on location sometimes.
It's easier for them, yep.
Looks good, or it's
Yep.
easier for them.
Yep.
I think that's the type of content that we need. And I think there's an opportunity here from, my ears on the ground, that folks are sadly disappointed that the newspaper medium, the Goffstown News, is gone, really.
Faded.
It's
It's
faded,
faded.
right?
It's
Um,
an advertising
There's,
flyer
right,
now.
there's not a whole lot really of substance, in that. So I think there's a vacuum right now that's been created, and GTV is a tremendous way for folks to communicate their message. And it doesn't matter if they're a government entity, if they're
Right.
if they're the Screaming Eagles football team or Girl Scouts who want to recruit. This is a great way to take a video and produce a show and then get people to join your group.
Well, I've said that before, something very similar to that. My background is radio. I come from the Midwest. And Midwest AM radio stations in small towns were huge. You go back about 30 or 40 years, that was it. Everybody turned on the radio. They would listen to the farm reports. They'd listen to the weather. They'd listen to the obituaries. I know those sound like
No,
almost dark.
I can relate to that.
But that was it was a staple of life. So this was the entertainment. This was people talking about their community. This was everything that was happening right there. I see public access as filling the void of that because that has completely gone away.
Yeah.
And when you couple that with what's happened with newspapers across the country, there's really a big vacuum of no news, local news especially. We can fill that. And we tried a few years ago to try and get a news show. And it just never, we had one episode and it didn't quite come together after that. But even if it's just stuff that's happening in the community, obviously we can fill that and put it out to people fairly quickly, I think, too.
Yeah, we got a really nice compliment. We ran into Matt Fleming, who's the softball coach, and he was telling both myself and Adam at the time that he gets so many phone calls from coaches of college coaches saying how wonderful these broadcasts are because they're recruiting his student athletes and they can actually see them
Yeah.
in action. And I'm sure that we do the same thing with football as well, where all you can do now is just go on YouTube. So if you want to see a particular player who's a kind of a star player or on our team, you can quickly watch. You can watch that game, and or that parent or student can actually get the footage and make
And
a
make their
highlight
highlight,
reel,
yep.
and then send it off to a coach. So it's so big in that respect on the sports side, but even on like the arts side, it can be the same type of thing.
Bishop Girton does that.
Yeah.
They put kids that are really good in sports with somebody introducing them and
Yeah.
doing a highlight film with them.
It's big. And we're not going to take credit for those kids going on to college, but I think there were 6 football players that went on to
Right.
college from last year that were
Yeah, and
graduates.
there's a couple of softball players that are playing as
Yep.
well. So
cool. It's great to hear that. That's awesome when I hear that kind of stuff. It's like, well, that's great.
And I will tell you this, from a marketing perspective, when I talk to, when these high school kids are on television, and now you've got kids who are 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds, they're watching this stuff, and they're like, hey, I want to be on
Yeah.
GTV too. And it's kind of a recruiting thing. So if there are some sports, it helps recruit kids to play in some of those sports. Just in the little, on that side of it.
It's also maturity. I find that, I can think of when my kids were in school, if somebody put a microphone, of course, my son went into communications, but normally, if you got a microphone in front of a child, they're like, back away from him. Now it's like, let's go for
And
it.
if you watch some of these interviews, these kids are very poised.
Great.
Very,
It's
very
great.
poised.
Yeah, and that's built up all through their school years.
Yeah.
They give presentations, they're taught how to do that.
Yeah,
So I
which
know
will-
what you're talking about.
Which will help them later on. I
Sure.
mean, all right, so they don't pursue a career in sports, but all of a sudden, now they're comfortable with being, if they're on a board as a parent later on, they're comfortable, and being before the public.
Exactly.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second it.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay,
You
we're
need to
done.
go.
Good meeting. Thank you very much.